setting up a YouTube live stream, and we'll get started in a second. Hello and welcome to this one of the most exciting panels at Open Repositories, Repository Rodeo, and I'm happy to introduce Maureen Walsh, who is a scholarly sharing strategist at the Ohio State University Libraries, and she will be moderating this panel. And please use Q&A for questions and chat for comments.
Thank you, and welcome to the Repository Rodeo for Open Repositories 2021. We're really excited to have 8 repositories represented. Oh, sorry. Had an issue with my screen share.
Yeah, it happens.
Sorry about that. And we have 8 representatives for those repositories who will be speaking today. And so we will get started with Danny.
Great, thank you for having me. Thanks, Maureen, for organizing and moderating. So my name is Danny Brooke, and I'm here to talk about the Dataverse project. I'm the product development program manager at a place called the Institute for Quantitative Social Science at Harvard University. I work across a couple of projects, but most of my time is spent on Dataverse. So next slide. And when people talk about the Dataverse project, they talk about a few different things. A lot of people talk about the open source software, the platform. Some people talk about the very broad Dataverse community, the people who are interested in data sharing, whether they be developers, researchers, data scientists, librarians, et cetera. And then some people, like a lot of scientists, talk about the data holdings themselves in the 70 Dataverse installations worldwide. So I'll talk about each of those just a little bit. So next slide. Cool. So I don't have a lot of time, so I'll be very, very brief. Really, the goal of the Dataverse project and the Dataverse software is to provide a framework for building research data repositories. And I'm sure you all know about FAIR data. So this is just a screenshot of a Dataset page in Dataverse that highlights some of the different ways that FAIR data is presented in Dataverse: data citations, robust metadata, versioning, licenses, and terms of use and user agreements. So if you want to learn more about the feature set, definitely check it out at demo.dataverse.org. You can sign up for an account that has the full product suite enabled, including the API suite, so you can test out the APIs. And then if you want to just see some features, you can go to dataverse.org/software features. Next slide, please. Cool. So I'll just talk very briefly about some of the recent efforts, some of the recent releases in the software. Large data support for large data, differential privacy for sensitive data. I'll talk about some of the stuff that we've done for scaling our data set and file pages as we've wanted to support new workflows, and then also talk a little bit about governance. So next slide. Great, so large data support. I can't say this in the halls of IQSS because all the social scientists will get mad at me, but since we come from social science, we started with a lot of smaller data. So we've been adding a lot of large data support through direct upload and download. And you can see some examples. This is from the Arizona State University Dataverse installation of some very large files in the top left, and then data sets in the top right, or in the bottom right, rather. Next slide. Also, differential privacy is something that we're partnered with the OpenDP project on. You can learn more about differential privacy at opendp.org, but it's basically a mathematical assurance of privacy. And so the first implementation that we've added in Dataverse is a way to allow researchers to create differentially private metadata releases from their restricted files so that researchers can learn more about the data before they decide whether or not to make an access request for that data. Since the access request process can sometimes be a bit onerous, this allows people to get basic information about that data. So this is just kind of the first step towards this, and we'll be working on this more in the future. But the goal of the first iteration of this is to just make it easier to learn more about the data before deciding whether or not to go through that request process. Next slide, please. Dataset and file redesign. This just shows a few different options for accessing the data and the metadata at both the dataset level and the file level. This is one that we've had to revisit as we're looking at cases of data itself not being held in a Dataverse installation and instead just the metadata being held in a Dataverse installation. Some additional workflows around data and metadata previews and downloads and exports. So this is just kind of highlighting some of the different ways that we're providing access to data and metadata throughout the application in a more scalable way. Next slide, please. And then one thing that I'll just very candidly say is that a lot of the groups that you're going to hear from during this presentation and a lot of the groups that are represented at this conference are way ahead of the Dataverse project in terms of community governance. This is an area where we need to do a lot better. And the Dataverse project has historically been run out of Harvard and has this community, but as we're growing, we're recognizing the need for community governance. And so it's really exciting to hear from other groups about their governance model. But we do have the Global Dataverse Community Consortium, and this is a very new model over the last couple of years, and we're really growing these governance models and kind of moving Dataverse to the next level of community governance. Next slide. And just really quickly, how to get involved. There's a lot of folks that contribute to Dataverse. You can find us on GitHub. And if you're not a developer, there are a lot of other ways to get involved. Working groups. We have our Dataverse community meeting next week. You can learn more about that at dataverse.org. Registration is free. We definitely encourage you all to join. Again, dataverse.org for the Dataverse community meeting. But also you can hop on the Google group and join us on our biweekly community calls, and that information is available at dataverse.org. Next slide. And then the last thing I'll talk about really briefly is the data. I mean, you can see from this graph here that we are getting a lot of growth, kind of the hockey stick growth in terms of file downloads, and we're seeing the same pattern across the rest of the community. So a lot of the stuff we've been working on over the last year has been performance related to, ensure that we can continue providing access to that data across the Dataverse community. So this is what our director Gary King is excited about. He's like, oh, look at all this data that scientists can use across the community, and so this represents a large chunk of that data that's available. Next slide. So yeah, again, thank you to y'all for joining. Thanks, Maureen, for organizing. There's a few links here about how to get in touch. I do encourage y'all to go to demo.dataverse.org to try anything out, and then feel free to contact me directly or support@dataverse.org for any questions that y'all have. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. We will move on to DSpace. Hi, I'm Maureen Walsh, Scholarly Sharing Strategist for the Ohio State University Libraries. I'm the Vice Chair of the DSpace Leadership and Steering Groups and the Chair of the DSpace Community Advisory Team, and I'm happy to talk briefly today about DSpace, a turnkey institutional repository solution. DSpace preserves and enables easy and open access to all types of digital content, including text, images, AV, and data sets, and has a community of developers and supporting institutions committed to continuously expanding and improving the software. DSpace is open source software that harnesses the skills of its active developer community, the energy and insights of engaged and active users, and the financial support of project members and registered service providers. DSpace focuses on the institutional repository use case and includes a core set of functionality out of the box that could be extended to or integrated with complementary services and tools in the larger scholarly ecosystem. DSpace is the most widely adopted repository software. There are currently more than 3,000 instances that we know of. DSpace is hosted in more than 120 countries in more than 20 languages, and there are currently 18 registered service providers supporting the software in 19 countries. DSpace's biggest asset is the strength of its community. The DSpace project has a defined governance structure, an active community advisory team that hosts community calls once a month, and 93 organizational members. DSpace also currently has 19 national user groups representing 23 countries, and user groups in Brazil, Mexico, Germany, and the United States hosted 10 webinars or meetings in the last year during COVID. We are really excited to announce here at Open Repositories that DSpace 7 will be released on August 2nd, 2021, or sooner. With version 7, DSpace no longer has two user interfaces. XML UI and JSP UI are no more. DSpace 7 includes a brand new Angular UI with many redesigned tools and features. Search is available everywhere. Search from header, search past and in-progress submissions, search workflow approval tasks, admin-only search for withdrawn and private items, and search within entity relationships. For example, search within author's papers or across all issues of a journal. Submission and workflow is easier with a one-page scrollable submission form, collapsible sections with status markers, drag and drop upload, and autofill by uploading bibtext, RAS, PubMed, Archive, EndNote, etc. And admin UI powers are even greater, including ability to administer all workflows. DSpace 7 includes enhanced privacy features for your users to align with GDPR with a customizable user agreement, user cookie tracking preferences, customizable privacy statement, and ability to delete any account quickly and easily. DSpace 7 also brings some command line scripts to the admin UI and a new processes section, and includes a basic embedded video player. For more information on DSpace 7 enhanced submission and workflow, there is a presentation tomorrow. And with DSpace 7, your data is open for integration. All DSpace features are available in REST API, which is built on best practices with a documented REST contract, is browsable by human or machine, and only clients you trust can log in. DSpace 7 also has support for OpenAir version 4 and a new configurable entities data model, which allows you to create different types of items and links relationships between them. There are two example entities models provided out of the box, although disabled by default. They are the journal hierarchy model and the author profiles researcher model, or research model, excuse me. All of this is built on the same backend technologies behind DSpace 6. For more information on DSpace 7 configurable entities, there is a presentation tomorrow. DSpace 7 release is by far the largest release in DSpace history. Over 1 million lines of code were changed. It is bigger than the last 4 major releases combined. Funded development for DSpace 7 began in 2020 to increase the pace of the development and to release 5 betas prior to the .0 release of 7. Atmeyer, Force Science, and Lyrasis were the core development contributors, and the organizations shown here all stepped up to help support the funded development model to get 7.0 out more quickly despite a global pandemic. A demo of 7 is available now to try prior to the production release of 7 on August 2nd. Check it out. Lyrasis is the organizational home of DSpace, but DSpace is funded, developed, and supported by its community. Members are partners in program leadership with a voice in ensuring that DSpace continues to serve the global community into the future. Please consider becoming a member. To get or stay involved with DSpace, check out Slack, our mailing lists, and other options. The strength of DSpace, to reiterate, is its community, and our members support the continued development and sustainability of the DSpace project. And I just like to take a second here to thank our platinum, gold, and silver members, and to thank our bronze and copper members. Thank you. And I will turn it over to Rory.
Hello. Good. Hello, I'm Rory McNicholl, and I'm from co-sector University of London, and I'm going to be donning my EPrints hat today. I have a few to bring you a brief update from the global EPrints community. So if I have the next slide, please, Maureen. Thank you. So I'll start with a quick introduction to the platform. EPrints is an open source full stack repositories platform. It was first released in the year 2000. It seems like yesterday. It had a major refactoring in 2006 to become an extensible plugin based platform. And it's one that allows an open community of developers and other stakeholders to extend capabilities, and that's kept things up to date for the last 14 or 15 years. So there are currently 712 EPrints repositories recorded in RAW. As you can see on the right here, that's quite big in Europe, especially in the UK, still growing in other regions. Thank you. Over the next slide, please. Okay, so here's a little diagram to illustrate the full stackiness of EPrints. So from top to bottom, we have a core repository. Everyone needs one of those. And then above that, we have the extensions that comprise both publicly available, easily installable plugins, some of which are represented on the right there in those icons, and also local configurations, as of course, no two institutions are the same or indeed want the same type of repository. Then we have a range of interfaces on top there for humans, non-humans, and superhumans, who are, of course, our repository managers. So if I could go to the next slide, please, and keeping the intro of the platform as brief as possible, because I'd like to take a look at some of the recent and upcoming developments from members of the community around the world. So despite a sizable proportion of the EPrints community suffering from acute refism, which is only happened in the UK, it's not a global thing, thankfully, for the past 12 months, there have still been some interesting developments from around the world, and I will share some of those with you now. Next slide, please. So first up from the UK and the brain of our very own Will Fyson, we have some exciting updates for a key plugin for many institutions. So this is the Dataset DOI plugin that's in wide use for coining DOIs from your repository. But the latest version of the plugin will comply, helps it comply with current dataset best practice and also assist with Plan S compliance. So the enhancements include the ability to reserve DOIs, which is we can see on the screenshot here, and the ability to update DOIs and the metadata stored within them. These are minor metadata changes as per DOI regulations, can't be changing too much. And so also we have the ability to coin DOIs for document items as well as EPrints now. And to achieve this, it was also necessary to add document level landing pages, which is a new sort of incidental feature for EPrints that's come out of that. We also added a pre-coin DOI lookup to minimize those embarrassing situations where you have a number of DOIs coined for the same record. So it will suggest that maybe the thing you're about to ask for a DOI for may already have it. Then also we've got some interface enhancements that will help highlight the data site compliance issues before we send stuff off for to be registered. So that's DOI data site plugin enhancements. Thank you. I'll have the next slide. Okay, so now we go north to Yorkshire. and another EPrints guru, John Salter, and his team at White Rose have been working on, well, sort of incidental stuff. But basically, when John started working on one of the Plan S compliance questions, namely the embedding of license metadata in documents, he discovered there was potential for more benefits than just boring old compliance. So he's used the EXIF tool, which it turns out isn't just for images, initially to insert useful metadata into a document. But John found that he could extract some pretty useful metadata as well. And some of the examples that he found were NISO document versions, ORCIDs that were hiding in there. And basically, after his analysis of the White Rose corpus, which is a consortium of 3 UK universities in Yorkshire, he found 30 different metadata schemas hiding in all those White Rose documents. So, so he's developed this out, and there's some new tools available on the back of this that will enable us to view embedded metadata in a document without downloading it. Do bulk analysis of embedded metadata, as John has done to find his 30 different metadata schema. Show mismatches between embedded document metadata and the equivalent record level metadata, which in turn allows for supplementing item level metadata with data from documents. So basically, he's unlocked a new data source that was right under our noses the whole time. And of course, embedding new documents metadata that might be missing, which is how this whole thing started. So that's quite exciting. If we could have the next slide, please. So now we go over to Canada and Concordia in Montreal, where Thomas and his team, with the help from EPrint Services and Artifactual, had developed a new integration for us. It's an integration with the Archivematica digital preservation system, which, if anyone is not aware of that, is a fully featured OAS compliant preservation platform. So their work has resulted in an integrated workflow in which content deposited in ePrints is packaged up and ingested into Archivematica. So, and in Archivematica, there is lots of best practice preservation happens there, which is good for people who need that. So the resultant archival information packages, bit of preservation jargon there, AIPs, as they're known in the trade, are made available to ePrints, also made available via ePrints, the ePrints front end, which completes the cycle of this workflow. So that's a really excellent piece of work. And you see at the bottom there, there's a link to the GitHub page for people who are interested in. There's a good README on there, which will do a bit more justice than I've just done. I'd suggest looking that up. So if I could have the next slide, please, Maureen. Thank you very much. So now to Switzerland and another ePrints community stalwart, Martin Brandl and his team from the University of Zurich, where they have integrated Elasticsearch within their ePrints instance, to bring some state-of-the-art even enhancements to their repository search. So you can now go to zora.uzh.ch and see an ePrint search with facets, highlighted snippets, field analysis, and indeed the handling of multiple languages, and a nice mobile-friendly layout. Okay, that's all our updates from around the world. I think I'm almost done. So have the last slide, please. Thank you. So this is just showing the sources of all the ePrints magic, where the work of the community is available. And I think I wanted to mention on there that, as well as slightly technical stuff around the GitHub repositories, there's also a useful wiki and indeed a very friendly tech list, a good old mailing list for anyone who's interested about finding out more. So thank you very much for your ears and enjoy the rest of the radio.
Thank you, Rory. And now we'll turn it over to Tim for Fedora.
Hi, where I am, it's morning, so good morning, everybody. I'm Tim Shearer. I'm the inbound chair of the Fedora steering group. and I'm at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where we've been using Fedora for quite a few years now. Fedora is a flexible, modular, open source repository platform for managing and preserving content. I think about it less as a domain-specific repository and more as slightly down in the stack, where it's really great at managing objects, their metadata, technical, descriptive, and other, and their relationships down to storage, so that you can think about preservation activity. Next slide, please. So it's flexible. It is data object agnostic. It doesn't care how your data lives or how it's related to other chunks of data. It's also metadata agnostic. You can describe your objects with whatever metadata standard or standards you like to, and you can put anything in there. So a disk, if you were doing some born digital archiving, you could put in a set of letters. You could put in an oral history that has sound files and transcripts and metadata out to interviewers. So it's hugely flexible. It's durable. The way it works, you can actually, we would never want to do this, but you should be able to recreate the entire repository from disk if you needed to. It's really focused on preservation activity in a preservation program. It's standards-based. There is an API that's well described and persistent, and it's interoperable, which is a way of saying it's standards-based. When you choose standards, you can interoperate with other machines or other systems. Slide, please. Tim, tell me more. Well, you can deploy it. You can build a custom front end or use a popular deployment. So at UNC Chapel Hill, we actually do both. We have a custom front end for our special collections. As I mentioned, Fedora is terrific with all kinds of different data models. And so when you look into a special collections library, you find all kinds of stuff. And Fedora is terrific at letting us capture and preserve that material. And we've done a significant investment in building tools for archivists, both to put material in and to preserve it. But we also use a Samvera-based deployment on top of Fedora, and that's for our institutional repository, which is more for the scholarship of the university. Think theses, dissertations, preprints, and so forth. Next slide, please. So I want to talk a little bit about where we are in sort of the history of Fedora. After the last major release, there was a lot going on in the open source community, in libraries and information organizations. And we just finished a major release, and it seemed like a really good time to step back and do some deep thinking about what we were doing, some introspection. So the community got together and started talking about clarity and focus around the mission. So what is Fedora and who is it for? And what we decided was there's a pretty good install base of Fedora. And so we thought we should look at it less as a project and more as a product. What can we do for the users of Fedora to make it work better for them? So we decided to reduce and remove barriers and continue our emphasis on standards over technology. So it's not what you own, it's how you trap it. Simplify keeping a repository current. There's concern about people not being able to migrate easily their repositories forward, and then to improve performance and scalability. I should note here, sometimes it is you, it's not me. So sometimes it's not the code, it's how an organization's chosen to organize its data can actually affect performance. So it's really good to understand that relative to your repository as well. Next slide, please. So those discussions led to some decisions. We decided to bring Fedora back to its original roots, which is really about supporting a program of digital preservation and object management. It's what it's really good at. It's what a lot of people chose it for. We decided to reduce barriers to migration. So Fedora 6 is the newest version of Fedora. And what we're trying to do is have Fedora 6 mirror earlier versions of Fedora so that the bridge to the future is actually easier to reach. We focused on system integration, so we've been actively working with adjacent communities such as Islandora and Samvera, which you'll be learning about shortly. And also David Wilcox from Lyrasis is the PI on a generously funded grant from IMLS to look around at building out migration tooling to help people migrate their objects forward. their repositories forward. Next slide, please. So there was discussion, there were some decisions, and there's some outcomes. Fedora, I'm so impressed and proud to be part of this community, but they've hit all their marks, and the Fedora 6 release candidate is available. I think it was announced last Friday, so just last week. And the production release of Fedora 6 will be available in June or July of this year. And also migration tooling is available. There's been some really productive work, not only in helping move your objects forward, but actually to validate the work after the fact. Next slide, please. So these are some of the benefits of Fedora 6. There's enhanced digital preservation support. We've embraced OCFL, the Oxford Common File Layout standard. There's improved performance and scale, and we've been really grateful for folks who have engaged early to make sure that we're catching issues and making sure it does scale. There's a built-in search endpoint. There were minimal API changes, which is great for people who are using earlier versions of Fedora. And this leads to easier and fewer migrations. Next slide, please. I wanted to mention that in about 2 years ago, in mid-2019, Lyricist moved into, Fedora project moved under Lyricist, and there's been some really lovely benefits of that. Lyricist is a larger organization than where Fedora came from, and that's brought specialization around finance and budget, around community development, communications, grant development, and it's basically been a larger, more inclusive and more diverse set of voices, and that has landed Fedora in an organization that's really well crafted to support it, so we're grateful. Next slide, please. So a little bit about the Fedora community. We've got over 450 public sites, and there are international installations of Fedora. We've got over 1,000 folks on the mailing list, 60 member institutions, and 15 active contributors. And it's a really vibrant community. There are 8 or more workshops a year, and usually 4 or more user groups a year as well. Next slide, please. So this is the obligatory, I was going to say the obligatory slide, but while Lyricist is our home, this is the community. Folks on this slide help devote developer time, they do governance, and they fund Fedora. And we're unbelievably grateful and proud to be part of this community and hope that you'll consider joining it. Next slide, please. So as with everybody else, I wanted to leave you with some resources. You can learn more about it. You can get involved. We'd love to have you join leadership. There's communication channels where you can plug in at your level. You can dig in to the actual product, see the code base. If you're migrating, there are migration tools. And there's a little bit link there out to OCFL as well. And with that, I'll turn it back. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Tim. And next is Taylor with Haplo.
Yep. Right. Hi, everyone. So my name's Taylor. I'm the lead developer for the Haplo repository. I'm going to be walking you through our sort of open source repository solution today. Next slide, please. So firstly, a bit of news about us at Haplo. So we've grown since we were last here. In January, we merged with Cayuse, a larger US company offering research administration software. This has tapped into a significant increase in investment in the Haplo repository, and our team of software developers and repository experts is growing fast. In terms of our community, we're actively running 6 repositories with a few more in the pipeline to join us soon, in development as well. And all of our code is available on GitHub if anyone wanted to get involved and start contributing to the project there. Next slide, please. So let's dive into the repository now. So this little graphic here shows the typical architecture of a Haplo repository. So we have the standard layers that are embedded in every instance, including the layers for security, permissions, version control, web publishing, the object store, things like that, SSO integration, as well as the application layer, which is highly configurable and can be used to build the application as necessary from a large list of plugins, some of which we'll see a bit later on. Next slide, please. So why use a Haplo repository? So I'm going to focus on these 3 reasons here, which are that you can store all of your research in a single repository, the streamlined and efficient processes we've designed, and the fact that with a Haplo system, you can put the repository at the center of your current research information system. Next slide, please. So we've got, first up, storing all of your research in a single repository. So there aren't any limitations in the type of output you can store. So we allow for traditional outputs, research data, practice-based research. And this is due to the flexibility of the underlying platform in both the fields present on each type, as well as the data types on those fields, for those fields rather. So this is what allows for sophisticated metadata handling. We also support fine-grained permission control. Things with the visibility of fields both internally and on the public interface too. And the linked data model here is a link is the primary data type in a Haplo system, and links between items lends itself really well to the repository. As you'll see just here, next slide please. So the linked data model lets us do some really nice things like creating dynamic portfolios. These draw together metadata and files from individual outputs within the portfolio, and all of this metadata is then brought together to highlight the research as a whole, while also encouraging exploration of the individual items within it. As you can see, Jenny Evans from the University of Westminster has some really nice things to say. Next slide, please. So the Haplo approach to building a system is very modular and thus highly configurable. We have hundreds of open source plugins available. I've listed a few of these here, but there are plugins for integration with external systems, changeable processes, standard mediated deposit workflows. But it doesn't quite stop there. So because of our highly configurable nature, it's trivial to swap out a standard plugin for a more specific one, so a mediated deposit process, for example. I'm just going to pause here to talk about some of our latest additions to the open source plugins list from our release. It was a little bit earlier last week. So we've got ORCID harvesting integration. So authenticated users, their works from ORCID will be harvested into the repository, and that will fall into our framework for handling that. Compliance checking against any NHMRC guidelines for any Australasian institutions. Duplication detection, and we now have a standard import route into a Haplo system from Digital Commons. Those have been some latest additions. So next slide, please. So next up is the streamlined processes. So as mentioned before, we have standard plugins for a lot of the workflow, so mediated deposit, access request, and claiming of items harvested from external systems. There's also a flexible and fine-grained permission system. We're yet to run into a permissions rule that can be expressed in speech that we can't implement. And we support metadata down to the file level with per file metadata. So if necessary, this allows for sensitive files to be restricted while allowing other metadata about those files to be accessible if required. For example, the file itself can be restricted, but the metadata of the record as a whole can be seen, as can the license on the file and any descriptions, if that's something that your system needs to support. Next slide, please. So here's our standard mediated deposit process. All of our systems are focused on self-submission from the researchers. So this starts with the researcher and moves through the outputs editor. You can then fill in embargoes and other sort of admin parts of the item. But if you don't like this one, it's, as mentioned earlier, it's trivial just to drop that and pop in your own one. And that's yeah, the modular approach that we've taken in designing the system. Next slide, please. So the efficient processes are only half the story. So we also have clear interfaces to let staff know exactly what's happening at every step in the process. This screenshot here shows one step in the process requesting access to a sensitive or restricted file within the repository. So the author will have approved the file to be released, and then this is passed on to a data preparer who can either upload a new prepared version or select that one there that's been anonymized for external staff, external users rather. Next slide, please. And finally, we've got the Haplo repository being at the center of the CRIS system with a custom branded public repository that's easy to swap in and out for your institution. The system integrating with researcher profiles seamlessly, and machine action with DMPs as an out-of-the-box plugin to install and use that's open source as well. Next slide, please. So first up, we've got the Rodhamsted Research Public Interface. This is was custom developed for Rodhamsted Research to match their institutional branding perfectly to provide consistent user experience when moving between the sites. Next slide, please. And then next up, we've got the Westminster Institutional site, which is displaying the profiles information, all of this information stored within the Haplo system and exposed to allow for display on the institutional site, providing that instant update and seamless integration. Next slide, please. We also have out-of-the-box DMP functionality to inform repository processes. So here you can see we've not restricted a file that we said we would in our data management plan. So we probably want to revisit our decision there and make sure we're restricting everything we're supposed to. Next slide, please. Trying to wrap this up quickly. I know I'm a bit pushed for time. Yeah, so to wrap it all up, the Haplo repository research and platform layers are all available on GitHub under a Mozilla public license under the Haplo organizational GitHub account, and I've popped a link to our documentation getting set up there as well. And very quickly, I'd like to just outline some of our upcoming projects, largely centered around integrations, so namely harvesting from Scopus, Web of Science, and Crossref. We're looking at an integration with Archivematica to get long-term preservation, and minting DMP IDs with Dataset and providing public landing pages for data management plans. If you didn't want to host the solution yourself, that's something we provide as a service, so you can get in touch with me afterwards if you want to hear anything about that. Next slide, please. Alternatively, if you prefer, you can get in touch with our implementation and support partner, CoSector at the University of London. That's fine too. You can find their information on their site and some more information about the services they offer at that address up there now. Next slide. And I'd like to thank you all for your time. Once again, I'm Taylor Mudd, the lead developer for the Haplo repository. I look forward to answering any questions, and I'll hand over to the next panelist.
Thank you, Taylor. Next is Sara with Invenio.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Sara Gonzales, and I'm a data librarian with Northwestern University. But today I'm coming to you as a representative of the Invenio platform. If you've been at previous repository rodeos, you might have heard Lars Holm Nielsen speak about Invenio from CERN. So I'm just subbing in for him today. So what I would point out, first of all, is that Invenio itself is an open source framework for building large-scale digital repositories. And if you would like to learn more about this framework, I'm actually putting the link to the website in chat right now. And on top of this framework, you can build, well, we have built two different things. One being RDM, the Research Data Management Repository, and the other is the ILS. So I represent the team that's working on the RDM. If you'd like more information on the ILS system, you can go ahead and check that out on the website and get in touch with Invenio representatives with any questions. Next, please. So focusing on the Research Data Management platform, here are the updates I'd like to share with you today. First of all, this platform is in active development as we speak, and we are working towards our LTS or long-term support version, which should be launching later this summer. So what we would like to emphasize about Invenio RDM is the open source nature of it and how it is scalable and modular, and we hope a repository that can be customized to the needs of your institution. And a way we like to think of it is as kind of install your own Zenodo. So we've got a screenshot here from Zenodo and then another from Invenio RDM's current sandbox implementation, which you can also reach from the site I just shared. And as you can see, there's going to be visual similarities and design similarities as well. So we aim to have Invenio RDM be as functional and easy to use as a local version of Zenodo. It's also being designed with the end user experience in mind for really every portion of it. So we want your end user, a researcher who might be depositing materials, to have as easy of a time with this tool as the local data curator and sysadmins and developers. So this is going to be a very scalable system, and we've got kind of built-in testing with Zenodo, which is also going to migrate over to the exact same framework very quickly. Zenodo, of course, has 5 million visitors a year. It's a highly utilized system, and teams who are currently working on Zenodo are also lending their expertise to the Invenio RDM development. So our new tool is going to be simple and powerful and architected for easy customization and for resilience. Next, please. So here are the features that are currently under development, some of which are actually completed as we work towards that LTS release. You can see through the icons at the bottom that we're building on a Python framework and also utilizing Elasticsearch. So a couple of things that we have implemented and are visible, some of them within this screenshot, are that we've got an ORCID link. We also have contributor roles and attribution built in. We're minting DOIs for every deposit. We're utilizing the Dataset metadata schema optimized with carefully chosen and controlled vocabularies to serve our community best. We're using the core open access designations. And very soon, we're about to roll out communities and collections, which are ways to gather together records, files, and users in kind of interactive and robust communities. We have citations that can be shared in various formats, and also sharing and access links, kind of made on the model of sharing a file through Google. And also we've got robust versioning, and what we're working towards and hoping to release is a very highly user-friendly deposit UX. And next, please. Also, talking about the obligatory slide, what we're sharing here is just a listing of the current partners, and actually this does kind of grow day by day. Partners join the team not only to implement Invenio RDM at their local sites, but also to contribute their coding knowledge and expertise. So as you can see here, we have an international team represented, and also people coming from many different subject areas and areas of focus. We've got universities, intergovernmental sites, national sites, nonprofits, museums, and businesses. And as you can see here, their subject matter focuses are all really varying. Next, please. We like to emphasize as well that it is an extremely welcoming and supportive community, whether you're joining to contribute your coding knowledge and expertise, or if you're joining as perhaps a repository manager, data curator, an end user. We welcome you all, and it's really wonderful to have the expertise and feedback from many different types of end users and different types of partners. So this is a photo of when we had met in person previous to the pandemic. We've been having project meetings on a yearly or even more frequent basis online since, but as soon as we're able, we will continue to have these project meetings in person. Next, please. And in addition to the community, what I would kind of point out about that is that when people join, if people would like to contribute expertise that is not necessarily along the level of code, people can join our metadata interest group, which has recently gotten up and running. So this is a group comprised of both coders and end users who are working together in order to help customize those fields in a way that's going to be most useful for the entire international community of users. So we are collaborating and working very closely together to decide on things such as which controlled vocabularies we would like to help flesh out our subject fields, a short list of licenses and languages to help make the deposit user experience that much more seamless and easy, and also usability testing efforts. So we've got a simple form that people can use as we're testing each new release, as we're working toward that LTS version. And our end users and partners are very generously donating their time and testing out our releases and sharing feedback, which just helps and feeds the development effort so much more. And it's an effort we really appreciate. Next, please. Finally, I'll just kind of emphasize that through Invenio RDM, like many of you have said, we want to do all we can to power open science. And we really want to enhance research rigor and reproducibility by allowing our end users to deposit all the different aspects of a project that will make it as reproducible as possible. So we encourage and emphasize and hope that we're easing the way towards users depositing their protocols, data management plans, study documents of various types. And also we like to enable peer review by allowing sharing and depositing of drafts of articles. We're supporting open science by allowing users to deposit and then disseminate their preprints, and by tracking their citations and alt metrics. We are linking authors' ORCID IDs, so that is going to be a push-pull relationship, so we will be able to share that information much more easily through the systems. And also we're crediting all contributors with their role on a project. So that's a creator or a contributor who you might like to list. You can tag them with a certain role, so it's very clear what their contribution to a project was. Next, please. So that is all we have today. If you are able to access these slides later or just check out inveniosoftware.org, there's ample information about how to get involved if you would like to become a partner, either contributing your coding knowledge and expertise, joining our metadata interest group, implementing. We would really like to hear from any potential partners. On the right, we're thanking our various funders who have generously supported this project. So that is all from Invenio RDM.
Thank you, Sara. Next is Arran with Islandora.
Thank you. So hi there, I'm Arran Griffith, and I'm the acting community manager here at Islandora. For those of you who aren't too familiar with it, Islandora is an open source framework designed to help institutions and organizations manage, utilize, and provide access to digital assets. So we operate on a Drupal, Fedora, and Solr base, giving users the flexibility to work with a large variety of data types and knowledge domains. Islandora also provides integration with several additional viewers and data processing applications, which allows users to display and showcase their data in a very wide variety of ways. So next slide. So our current community is highly engaged and plugged in. We've got several active working groups and a large committer base. We are a globally connected and involved group with a diverse skill set, which only adds to the richness of our community. So a quick little breakdown here. As it stands today, we have 2 major versions of the software, Islandora 7 and Islandora 8. There are 10+ working groups and an active committer base of around 32. We have 34 Islandora Foundation members that contribute both financially and to the community and code base, as well as 1,100+ email list members. And our Slack channel is constantly growing and where the majority of our action and support takes place. So next slide. So this here is just a really quick glimpse at our global installation base. As you can see, we have a really large North American representation, but we also have registered installations in just about every other continent, which is kind of interesting. Next. So I'm just going to briefly go through the platform here really quickly. You can flip to the next one there. So this here is a list of just some of the core features and functionalities of Islandora. As I mentioned, Islandora is essentially a Drupal front end with a Fedora repository backend, and it offers support for any digital file type really that you could want. This list is quite extensive, and if you really want any specific details on it, I would encourage you to head over to our Slack channel. It's probably the best way to get plugged in. I'm speaking today from the community side, so any of the highly technical stuff, I would suggest going over to Slack or emailing the community email, which I'll give you at the end here. Next. And so now I just wanted to highlight some of our greatest successes coming out of 2020, and you can flip to the next one there. I'm going to start with our top 3 technical successes. So the first one there is Islandora 2.0. So this was formerly known as Islandora 8 or I8. The reason that we changed the name is that we wanted to align our software releases with proper semantic versioning and move away from Islandora 8. Islandora 8 was like a nod to Drupal's versioning. And so in order to stick with our own semantic versioning, we'll be changing the name of Islandora 8 over to Islandora 2.0. So really briefly, Islandora 2.0 will be compatible with both Drupal 8 and 9, and we're committed to supporting both until Drupal 8 reaches end of life. It's going to have an advanced search module, which was previously not included in the feature set for Islandora 2.0. So we have gone back and added that. It supports audio and video transcripts, which just gives it another content type that Islandora can do versus Islandora 7, if you were previously using that. And it has the ability to handle batch uploads, which is going to essentially replace the previous zip batch uploader, which is going to make things a lot easier for large uploads. And our number 2 success was the advancement of ISLE. So ISLE is essentially a Dockerized version of Islandora, meaning that it's a faster and standardized way to install Islandora. ISLE actually started as a Mellon grant-funded initiative for Islandora 7 and was adopted by the foundation after the grant finished, and we've chosen to advance it. The reason that we love ISLE actually is because it's faster, it's easier to manage, which lowers the barrier to entry. So installing Islandora is a little bit simpler, and it's shared. So the community does the development in the background and all the updating behind the scenes. So when you spin it up, it will always be the most current version. So that's super handy. And the third tech win this year was the initiation of community-owned and executed sprints. So we had some working groups that came out of hiatus to hop on and help with the advancement of Islandora 2.0. So our documentation interest group came out to run and execute their own sprints with goals aimed at updating all of the documentation that would match the new features and functionalities of Islandora 2.0. So that was entirely community-led and community executed. leaving our tech lead to focus on other areas of work. And also our metadata interest group has been working on defining and redefining the metadata profile for Islandora 2.0. Again, all community led. And all of these sprints and accomplishments were because of these the community-led actions, which is something that we're pretty proud of. So you can flip to the next slide. And from the community side, one of the largest things that we undertook this past year was the restructuring of the Islandora Foundation governance groups. So previously we had quite a large board of directors, and in restructuring, we downsized the board of directors group and added an additional layer of governance, the leadership group. So this gave us the ability to clarify and redefine the responsibilities of each level of governance, making them more effective in their charges. So everybody had a smaller scope of work, which allowed us to get more accomplished. And we'd also heard from the community that they wanted more opportunities for involvement with the tech team specifically, and a regular outlet to ask questions and get live support. So we created 2 different monthly meetings open to all skill levels. The first is our Islandora user call, which takes place monthly and is for community members to discuss development efforts and explore use cases that are maybe a little bit less technical in nature. So we still have our tech call, but the Islandora user call is to allow people to get a little more insight on things that are discussed at the tech call. And the second one that we have is a monthly open meeting. So we essentially consider this like Islandora office hours. So it's a 4-hour drop-in style session where anybody, community members or not, can drop in. They can ask questions directly to Danny, our tech lead, or troubleshoot issues with other community members. We often have live demos and encourage people to come and showcase what they've been working on in their institutions. So this has been a really great draw for the IF, and our numbers each month keep growing. You can find those the last Tuesday of every month if you wanted to join. And lastly, as I think I've mentioned this before, our community is extremely vibrant and plugged in to all that's going on. And one of our greatest successes this past year was the growth of our committer team. We can't move forward without our developers, and we're proud to say that we've welcomed several new committers to the team in the last year, which is pretty incredible and speaks to the commitment of our members and the future of Islandora. Next slide there. Awesome. So lastly, here are some resources. I won't go through them all, but what I would recommend is you can join us there, the link to join us on Slack. You can ask your questions there. You can spin up an Islandora instance if you'd like to test out with ISLE using the link listed there. And obviously, we would encourage you to head over and become a member to our Become a Member page to see how you can contribute to the further development of Islandora. And the next one. So you can flip to the next one there. Thank you. Awesome. So that's all I have for Islandora today. Thanks again for your time. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email me at community@islandora.ca. Or like I said, the best way to go about it is to hop on Slack.
Thank you, Arran. Next up, we have Heather with Samvera.
Thanks so much, Maureen. Hi, I'm Heather Greer Klein, and I'm the community manager at Simvera. I'll be taking you through a quick introduction to Simvera technology. I'll talk about our community and some of our current community initiatives. And next slide, please. So Simvera is based on the premise that no single system can provide the full range of repository-based solutions for a given institution's needs, and that no single institution can resource the development of a full range of solutions on its own. So working together, the Samvera community creates sustainable solutions using a common infrastructure built for flexibility to adjust solutions to address local requirements and workflows. And next slide, please. So this means that, related to the conference theme of Open for All, the technology supported by the Samvera community has been adopted by a diverse set of organizations with different resources and different missions all around the world. Next slide, please. So these organizations have taken Samvera technology and they've adapted it to meet those specific local needs. And next slide, please. So the technologies supported within Samvera include the core system components that can be the basis of a fully custom repository system, as well as solution packs to meet specific system requirements, such as time-based media or self-deposited electronic theses and dissertations. Next slide, please. So Samvera is designed to provide a rich front-end framework for a Fedora repository, metadata, and data storage layer. And Solr allows for fast searching and rich discovery of content. One of our technologies called Valkyrie allows systems to be further customized to use combinations of PostgreSQL, Disk, Fedora, or Solr for metadata discovery and storage. Next slide, please. So a set of core components that are Ruby gems provide interfaces interacting with Fedora and Solr, and PCDM compliant data models and other commonly needed features like characterization, text extraction, and derivative generation. Next slide, please. So atop the core components, you can optionally place the Hyrax Rails engine. It will provide a fully featured repository front end with self-deposit and administrative workflow features. And next slide, please. So your final application can be a highly tailored solution that's built on those core components, or it can be a lightweight wrapper that's built on top of Hyrax, or it can be an instance of a solution bundle like Haiku or Avalon Media System. Next slide, please. So Avalon is the first solution bundle that was built by the Samvera community, and its use case is for managing and providing access to large collections of digital audio and video materials. And while it's currently built on top of the Samvera core components, a future version of Avalon is going to be built on top of Hyrax. The use case for the Haiku solution bundle is multi-tenancy. So it's built on top of Hyrax. It comes with all of the features of Hyrax, but by being multi-tenant, that means that there's a single repository owner that can create multiple Hyrax instances for that repository. So it can be deployed in the cloud, and it's being offered and developed now by service providers and by consortia to offer hosted repositories. Next slide, please. So the community is the core of Samvera. And next slide, please. The Samvera community and its partners have grown from an initial group of 5 founders over a decade ago to a broadly based community of over 60 adopters with over 30 formally committed partner institutions. And anyone is welcome to attend interest group meetings at any time to ask questions of our product owners and learn from other adopters. And we also have a weekly tech call. Anyone is welcome there as well. Our Slack's very active, and it's a great place to ask questions. And as of October 2020, the community has 1 staff member, the community manager, and that's me. And I'm always available to help connect or contribute in a way, help you to connect or to contribute in a way that works well for you and that makes sense for your organization. Next slide, please. So Samvera is led by a board of elected representatives from our partner institutions, and 2020 was our first year with a fully elected body. And next slide, please. Samvera partners collectively advance the project and the community for the benefit of all participants. So rather than a membership model, Samvera relies on invested adopters who are invited to formalize their existing commitment to partnership in support of the Samvera technologies and community. So sustainability has been a big focus for the past 3 years, culminating in the creation of a contribution model to formalize the financial component of partnership. And next slide, please. So here are our current Samvera partners, and we have a partner list at the bottom of the samvera.org website. And next slide. We have 4 service providers who are also partners, and they're an integral part of the Samvera community. They work with institutions implementing Samvera software locally and also offer cloud-hosted instances of our solution pack Haiku. Next slide. So finally, just a few of the many happenings in the Samvera community. Next slide. We've moved to a new fiscal sponsor, Oasis Open, and as part of the Oasis Open model, the Samvera Foundation is a 501c6 series LLC in the United States, And Oasis Open's model allows the community to be an independent, self-governed entity while ensuring that all of our fiscal and legal obligations are met. So we're really excited to be part of this new community that is well known in the wider open source world. Next slide. And we have very active working groups and interest groups. They're the heart of our community work. These are just a few things that our folks are working on right now. We're having very useful and interesting discussion sessions around challenges to community development processes. And we're working to ensure that we have a well-documented response plan for code of conduct violations. We've also got groups working on everything from design principles to our Connect conference, which will be held online in October. Next slide, please. I've got some resources here, but please don't hesitate to get in touch to learn more. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather, and thank you to all of our panelists for the 2021 Repository Rodeo. We now have some time for questions and some discussions, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we'll open it up for questions.
I think we answered most of the questions in Q&A. There was a question in the chat when Tim was presenting about Fedora. Thank you for your presentation. I've used Fedora in the past and it's nice to have updates. Can Fedora be more connected to DSpace?
I mean, in some ways I would defer to DSpace. I think they're in the, just wrapping up a massive rewrite of the code, but in principle, Fedora could sit underneath any repository system to manage the objects and the persistence layer. I'm looking for confirmation from my colleague.
Fedora and DSpace. Theoretically, yes. I am going to put a link to a DSpace 7 question and answer sheet that's public for more technical questions. If, you know, I don't see the question you just read. Was that in chat or in questions?
It was in a chat in the beginning of the session, so you have to scroll up.
Can Fedora be more connected to DSpace? I think certainly with DSpace 7, there's a lot more opportunities. I would suggest asking that question to the DSpace developers, and I'm going to post it in chat in just a minute, the public DSpace 7 question and answer sheet. But thank you for your question.
Thanks. There is also a question from Patrick. Can the Dataverse team explain a bit more the IRODS integration?
So that's a community integration, so I don't have great information about it, but I'll be happy to share some information. And I do see that Sherry shared some information as part of the Q&A. So I will add that to the chat just to amplify it. And again, that's Sherry Lake from UVA. Thank you, and I'm copying it now to put in the chat.
There is also a question from Anne. Rory, it seems like we could all benefit from reading and writing to file embedded metadata. Would it be possible to write this project in a more general way? And there were also some comments about that on Twitter, that it looked very exciting.
Yes, yeah, I think it is in a more general way, in terms of beyond. So So what John has done at White Rose is specifically for EPrints, but he's used the tool he's used to do that is EXIF, and that's a standard and widely available, so it could be adapted, and I see them being very useful for all of the repository platforms that we've got here gathered. Yes, but I would have to defer to him in terms of if the question is about making it available. I believe, knowing John, it will be coming through on the GitHub ePrints UG community at some stage. So in that sense, it will be more broadly available at some stage, but I don't know when.
Thanks a lot. Any other questions? Maybe let's give a minute or two to add questions if there are any. Then I guess thanks a lot, everyone. So we are wrapping up this wonderful session. Thanks a lot to our speakers. And let me show you what's next. In today's program. We're staying in the same room for the Iris in a Bloom panel that will start at 1:30 the hour, as the program says. And then this panel will be for half an hour. And then in this room 1, as we call it, we'll have 2 presentation sessions, 5 and 6. And there is a parallel session 24/7, sessions 2 and 3 in another Zoom room. And you'll have to go and check the link in SCAD. And I would like to thank again our Open Repository sponsors for Science, the Library Code at Maya, My Science Walk Somewhere, and Cayuse. Thanks a lot. And then I guess we'll resume in 15 minutes. And next panelist could test sound and mics if needed. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.